is Doug DeMuro, and today we are going to talk about 15 cars that automakers should make. And I am not going to talk in this list, oh, there should be a brown diesel station wagon version of whatever car. No, I mean, these are 15 cars that I think would sell and would make a profit, and I don't understand why they're not in production right now. So let's get started. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era, now with free listings. You can list your cool car for free and auction it on Cars and Bids. And you should, because we've had some fantastic sales recently, including this wonderful Porsche 944 Turbo, which sold for $54,000, this Dodge Viper, which sold for just under $43,000 after failing to meet its reserve with our biggest competitor, and this wonderful BMW M3 Lime Rock Park Edition, which sold for $95,600, setting a record price for this model. If you're looking to buy or sell a cool enthusiast car from the modern era, Cars and Bids is the place to do it. Check it out at carsandbids.com. Okay, so 15 cars that automakers should be building, and I've kind of ranked them from most likely, like why aren't they doing this, to least likely, I think it would do well, but I get why they're not making it. So I'm gonna start with the one that is the most obvious, that should be made unquestionably, and that would be a Dodge Challenger convertible. Why does this not exist? The Challenger has been on the market for 15 years now, or something almost that insane. And the Ford Mustang has a convertible, and it sells great. Like a third or 40% of Mustang sales are convertibles. The Camaro has a convertible, same deal. Like a third of Camaro sales are convertibles. Why is the Challenger ignoring this market? It is so obvious. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to the point where there have been aftermarket conversions done, which cost tens of thousands of dollars compared to the automaker usually offers it for like $3 grand more. And yet people pay it. Occasionally one of these convertible conversions will pop up. People pay it. Why Dodge has not made a convertible of the Challenger is absolutely beyond anything that I have the mental capacity for. Also because they could charge, they're doing all these special edition versions of the Charger and the Challenger, and people pay big money for them, the Demon and the Hellcats and all the weird SRT versions. If they did a convertible version in addition to the coupe and the sedan, they would make even more money. It's just baffling to me why this doesn't exist. There have been convertibles of way less convertible desiring cars, and I think that this one is insane. But okay, I'm gonna move on. I can't devote that much time to each of them, but that one is an obvious one to me. WRX is the next one. There should be a WRX wagon. The WRX wagon was on the market. When the WRX first came out in the early 90s in Japan, there was a wagon version. Then that came out in the States, there was a wagon for the first 2 generations in the States. And it was popular. And wagons are especially hot right now. You get a lot of wagons in the market, starting with the RS6 and the E63, but it trickles all the way down. Basically, every one of the WRX's performance rivals is offered as a wagon or a hatchback. You have like the Focus RS, the Focus ST, the GTI, the Golf R, the Veloster N. You could go through a lot of these. And they all have a hatchback component. I'm not sure if the WRX might be the only one that doesn't. And so I don't get that. There are wagon versions of this car. And so it seems so obvious to me to just make a WRX wagon and you would satisfy a lot of people. All your competitors do it already. It's sold before, and older WRX wagons actually pull big money. Those STI wagons like 2010 are pulling about what they sold for sticker in really good shape, which kind of proves there is some demand there. But also there's other new models that are like this. I don't understand why they don't do that. Okay, next one, car should be on sale. The Ford Ranger Raptor. This is an obvious one. The F-150 Raptor has killed. It's done incredibly well. It's been a massive success for 10 years. They've just come out with the Bronco Raptor, which seems really cool. There should be a Ranger Raptor. Now, I want to make a point here. They do sell a Ranger Raptor in other markets. It didn't come to the States, and only in markets where the F-150 was not available. I suspect the reason that we didn't get a Ranger Raptor is because Ford is about to redesign the Ranger. It sort of showed up in the middle of its life cycle, and the next generation Ranger, I strongly suspect, will offer a Raptor version. But I actually think they missed an opportunity even bringing a Raptor here for just a couple short years, because I think it would have done well. But maybe they worked out that all the changes necessary to create a Raptor just wouldn't have made it make sense for just a couple model years. Okay, next up, here is an incredibly obvious one that really needs to be made. A Volkswagen van of some variety. Now, In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, Volkswagen owned the camper van market. The old Volkswagen bus, the flower power movement, everybody knows about that. They moved on to the van again in the 80s, and that did really, really well and was very successful. And then it kind of all dropped off. The Eurovan was sold here in the 90s and early 2000s, but it wasn't very successful, and then Volkswagen stopped, and they haven't had a van in the United States in 20 years, which would make sense if vans weren't popular, but they're so popular. Half my neighbors have a Sprinter van. You know, that's like the hot thing on the coasts now, to get a Sprinter van and to drive it somewhere and feel like you're out in the middle of the wilderness, but really you got 3 beds, a TV, and a 4-burner stove. That's the thing people are doing these days. And Volkswagen invented that, and they're not here. Now, Volkswagen has claimed repeatedly they will be coming out with an electric van soon. They're calling it the ID Buzz. That's the name of it as a concept, and they say they're going to come out with that as a production car eventually. Count me as skeptical. Over the years, Volkswagen has said they're going to come out with a new version of the Volkswagen bus for years. I've been hearing this since the early 2000s. They had a concept version, they had other concept versions. They announced where they were going to build it, how many they were going to make every year. They got even to that level of detail, and they've never come. Now, I think the ID Buzz is further along than most of these vehicles, but I'm still sitting here thinking, let's go! Let's do this. Like, I'm ready for a Volkswagen van. They owned this market. They still have a lot of buy-in from enthusiasts in this market who remember the van again and the bus days. And I think Volkswagen would absolutely kill if they had a Sprinter style vehicle. And I think they really should. Okay, next up, another car that absolutely should be built, and I can't understand why this automaker doesn't pursue it, Ferrari, is a manual transmission Ferrari new car that is like a collector's model. This does sound sort of like an enthusiast saying, I want a manual version. I hate that stuff. If an automaker can't make it make financial sense, then shut up about it. But in this case, I think they really, really can make it make financial sense. We have seen on the used market that manual transmission Ferraris sell for vast premiums over automatics. F355s will sell for double in a manual what an auto did. Same deal with 360s, with 430s, and 575. All these cars, manuals are so wildly more desirable than automatics. And so it surprises me that Ferrari hasn't picked up on this, especially because their rivals have. Porsche was about ready to give up on the manual entirely until the 911R came out and demand went through the roof. Cars were selling for $700,000 on the used market, a $250,000 car, and Porsche said, we need to make more special edition manual cars. And so they did. And now 911 GT models are ordered in a higher proportion manual than automatic. And Ferrari's argument is, well, it'd be expensive to develop and automatic is faster. I get that it's faster, but in my experience with Ferrari, they're here to make money. And a manual Ferrari special edition, like a SP1, SP2 type car, except an SP4 with a stick, would make money. That car would be so long-term desirable. And I'm surprised they don't pull a Porsche 911R GT3 Touring kind of thing and just make a stick shift. Okay, the next several of these on this list, the next 6 of these off-roader SUVs. I got 6 in a row and I'm gonna kind of breeze through them. But the off-roader SUV market is unbelievably hot right now. I've mentioned this in a zillion videos. People are paying crazy money for used Land Cruisers and 4Runners, for G-Wagons and Raptors at every segment of the car market, whether it's cheap stuff like old Tacomas on Craigslist or expensive stuff like LM02s and G-Wagons. The off-roader market is the hottest car market in a hot car market. And I don't quite understand why some automakers are not more in this market. And I got 6 of these that should be on sale right now. Number 1, Lamborghini LM002. I don't understand why Lambo didn't do this. They have a history of making a crazy, brutish off-road SUV. And apparently they're gonna come out with a safari version of the Huracan with like raised ground clearance and all-terrain tires. And it's like, I wonder if there's something else you could do. Make an off-road SUV. The LM002 was so desired and cool in collectors' minds. And I think that a modern day version of that would also be really successful. Next up, Chevy Blazer. I mentioned this in a long review I did of the Chevy Blazer, but that car was a huge missed opportunity. They created a boring rental car crossover, but they should have created a competitor to the Jeep Wrangler and the Ford Bronco, proven by the fact that the Wrangler is now almost outselling the Toyota Camry, and the Ford Bronco has 200,000 outstanding orders waiting to be fulfilled, and General Motors is here with no competitor. It makes absolutely no sense, and the Blazer was a missed opportunity. And same goes for the Nissan XTERRA. I think that Nissan is almost the last automaker left with no off-roader vehicle. Volkswagen doesn't really have one, Honda doesn't really have one. But Nissan had one, the XTERRA, which they made, I think, all the way through like 2012 or 13, maybe beyond that, maybe 15, and they got rid of it. And amazingly, they still sell a newer version of that car in Asia. So they make An off-roader SUV. They still produce it, but they don't sell it in the market where it's the most hotly demanded. So Toyota's sitting over here getting $20,000 over sticker on 4Runners and selling 200,000 of them a year, and Nissan is trying to survive on Altimas they financed to people with bad credit. It makes no sense at all. There absolutely should be a new Nissan XTERRA. There should have been one 5 years ago, and Nissan is losing money actively by making a poor decision. And this is what happens when you have bad leadership who don't really understand the market and understand the trends, which is what's currently going on at Nissan. There should be an XTERRA. And frankly, I think that Toyota, you can make a similar argument for. Toyota canceled the Land Cruiser. I've talked a lot about how I think that was a mistake, but even if they don't bring us the 300 series Land Cruiser, Toyota needs to do something with the Land Cruiser name. It is unbelievably sought after on the used market. Enthusiasts are desperate for these cars. The name has never been stronger before with this resurgence in off-roading. They need to do something with the Land Cruiser name. Even if we don't get the newest Land Cruiser, make it like an ultimate, like Raptor version of the 4Runner. Do something with this name that you have so much equity in. I can't think right now of a car name that has more equity in North America that is not being used other than Land Cruiser. It's a big mistake. And I also think in that same vein that Porsche should do an off-roader Cayenne. They did, on the first generation model, they did one called the Cayenne Trans-Siberia, which at the time was openly mocked because it had all these heinous orange accents and orange wheels. But now that off-roading is so hot, these original Cayenne Trans-Siberia models are becoming incredibly desirable. I recently heard a story of a dealership near me who sold one with low miles for $100,000. That car was like 60 when it was new, and it's ultimately just a 13-year-old Porsche Cayenne. It's not that amazing, but people want off-roaders right now, and that was sort of Porsche's only entrant into this world, and I think that a off-road Cayenne would really be a big success. So those are my off-roader SUVs that I think should be made. The last car that I think that they should be made that isn't, that would be kind of rational to be made, is the Cadillac Escalade-V. Which would be like a high-performance version of the Cadillac Escalade. But a few days before I filmed this video, Cadillac announced that they are going to make an Escalade-V. I don't know why it took them so long, but they're going to do that. So that gets off this list, and so instead I'm going to turn my attention to a BMW X7M and an M7. BMW has never made M versions of its largest cars. There's never been an M7, there's never been an X7M. I think it's a mistake. BMW is on the record saying, no, the M brand doesn't tune vehicles that size. It doesn't fit with the ethos of the M brand. Give me a break. Go make money. Mercedes has AMG versions of all this crap. They don't care about any of that stuff. They're just putting big engines in cars and making money. And BMW should be doing the same thing. Instead, we have these Alpina versions that are sort of half-hearted M cars. Just make the M car. And next up, another car that I think really should be made, the Toyota Prius as an SUV. I'm not exactly sure why this isn't happening. The Prius came out in late 90s or 2000, and since then SUV demand has absolutely skyrocketed, and they've never done an SUV Prius. They did other body styles. There was a short Prius called the Prius C, there was a long one called the Prius V, but they never did a Prius SUV. Now Toyota has made other hybrid SUVs. There was a Highlander hybrid for a long time. It still exists, but it's less popular now. There is now a RAV4 hybrid, but it's just not quite the same. I think you can cash in on the excitement and the demand for the Prius name and create kind of an aerodynamic SUV car like the Model Y, and I think that would do pretty well. And instead we get the Venza, which is kind of a surprise. I think a Prius SUV would be a strong seller, and it certainly would have been 5 or 6 years ago when the Prius was even more popular. Finally, I want to close with two cars that I think are very unlikely to be put into production, but I still think they would be successful. Number one is a modern Honda S2000, and I know car enthusiasts, I bring back the S2000. I really believe that it would be successful though. When you look at prices of used S2000s, they sell for often above their sticker price, even though they're 20 years old with 20-year-old technology, and they're not rare. And I think Honda could make a new one in the $35,000 to $45,000 range and actually do pretty well. There's clearly a big enthusiast following for these cars. There's people who are interested in the S2000 in the modern era and who are willing to pay big money for an S2000 in the modern era. Why doesn't Honda cash in on that and take some of that and really do, they've already built up kind of a reputation for these fun performance cars. Manual transmissions are very hot right now. Honda does manuals very well. And I think that that car would not be unsuccessful. I don't think it would be a massive breakout hit, but you know, was the original Insight, was the Del Sol, was the second generation Element? I mean, Honda makes some weird car decisions, so why not make one in favor of enthusiasts and really go there? I think that this car would do well. The last car that I think would be really cool if it was made, and I'm not sure if this one would turn a profit, but I know it would build up the brand's rep, a Chrysler Pacifica SRT with a V8, a Hemi V8, something like that. It sounds stupid, a minivan with a V8, and it's ridiculous on its face, but the Pacifica is the very last car that hasn't taken the V8 yet from Chrysler that would have any reason to have it. And I think it'd be cool. And it's joked about a lot on the internet. And even Chrysler, I think, has like teased joking images of it. And it's never actually been done, of course. Pacifica's a front-wheel drive vehicle based, and so it would be hard to do. But I think that there's actually some desirability there. And you're doing a Durango with that engine. You're doing a Grand Cherokee with that engine, a regular Wrangler. I mean, it makes some sense kind of, and I think it would be hilarious to do. And I think that people would absolutely people would flip out at their love and admiration for Chrysler even more than they already do for making all these crazy muscle cars in the modern era. I think an SRT Pacifica would be cool. So there you go. That's a lot. But those are my cars that I think should be made. I can't believe some of this stuff isn't on the market. Nissan No XTERRA is one of the most insane things. Challenger convertible. Come on. Do you need me sitting in my garage to figure these things out? You're car company executives. Get it done.